The following is a public preview of the New Models podcast. For our complete library, visit patreon.com/newmodels or newmodels.substack.com.
You're now locked in with New Models.
Greenroom, a New Models podcast.
Welcome to New Models. I'm Carly Busta. On this episode of New Models Greenroom, New York-based writer Olivia Kan-Sperling joins us again, this time to speak about her recent work, Little Pink Book, a Bad, Bad Novel, which is out now from Archway Editions. Initially penned as an exhibition text of sorts for the artist Diane Severin Nguyen's 2023 show at the Rockbund Art Museum in Shanghai, it's a novel the way that Shein is a department store or a post-fifth wave lychee matcha latte is coffee. It's also unapologetically aware of this, as it is what you, the reader, wants it to be and how you will most likely read it. Little Pink Book is a fascinating experiment in what fiction is and what content can be. When we last had Olivia on the show, it was to discuss the changing operation of style, as well as her debut novel Island Time, a piece of fanfic starring Kendall Jenner and Lil Peep. I feel personally indebted to Olivia, as her work and general understanding of how we communicate really helped me see that the meaning-making has shifted from a textual linear arrangement to something more network-based and collectively generated. As always, my co-host is Lil Internet. Our guest is Olivia Kan-Sperling. Let's get into it. So welcome back to the show. Where are you right now? You're in New York?
I'm in New York, yes. I'm in Chinatown. It's the Festival of San Gennaro outside my window.
Our last proper recording was in winter of 2023, and you had recently published your, I think, first novel, Island Time. And we were curious about the aesthetic properties of that book and also your read on how style might be functioning across cultural circles in New York at the time. And I remember that about halfway through that call, it was clear that we were working with two really different frameworks of what style is now. And I have to say that it was thanks to you and thanks to that conversation that I started seeing and thinking about style and actually all cultural production completely differently. I wondered if I could actually start by giving you the example that has been like doing somersaults in my head ever since and ask you 2.5 years later if it indeed tracks to your conception, because I feel a little guilty, like maybe I pinned this on you and it's actually not even accurate, but here I have a chance to actually set the record straight. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay. So in the past, one would directly emulate a style of a certain group to have membership in that group. And of course, that still happens. But more significantly, as I think your argument was 2 years ago, people might emulate a certain logic of navigating online channels. I think it started when we asked you about your own personal style or your scene style or something. And you said that you and your friends don't really have one. And then you talked about style more as sharing a taste as defined by search terms or an ability to creatively prompt. So it's really like a dimensional shift in what we think of as style and something that's much more like language-based. Is that accurate?
Wasn't the example though like
the green
sweatshirt from AliExpress or
something? You might have
something?
said that. You were like, you'll see someone walking down the street and you're like, I know that sweatshirt. It doesn't fit them well. It doesn't matter. It's amazing that they found that same sweatshirt.
Because it was on AliExpress.
It was on
right?
or something like Shein or whatever. Is that accurate?
I think, yes. I mean, I think that's definitely true. I think a lot about how much, I mean, I'm like always ranting about this because I think this is like a huge misconception about digital culture. There's this like book that came out recently called Immediacy by Erna Kornblue. I'm not sure if you encountered this. Like,
we haven't read it actually still, but everyone references it.
Everyone references it all the time. And I think like her argument about how theory is very anti-intellectual right now, like her critique of her own discipline is super, super on point. But she's like saying all this stuff about how, you know, when we're online, we're just like in the flow and it's all immediate and we like don't, there's loss of form. And I think that like the opposite is true. I think maybe if you're not a digital native and you are encountering things like Instagram or whatever, as it seems Anna Kornblue is, then yeah, you don't speak the language and you're not able to interface with these objects properly, which is by understanding their form and being able to disrupt it, if that makes sense. Like everyone understands intuitively how algorithms work just by using a platform. You've seen like the rise and fall of so many different social media platforms, and like you know very deeply how form structures like social experience and aesthetic experience and all of these things. You have this intuitive understanding of something that like we learned in the whatever Marxist reading class, you know?
Right.
Understand this. So I think, yes, when you're talking about protocols, and I would describe the same phenomenon, the question of whether you call this style is maybe, I don't know, a question for aesthetic philosophy or something. It's interesting to call that style. I almost think that, I mean, the word style is also a word that we encounter more and more in our daily lives, like outside of, again, people who are like aesthetic theorists or something, like style transfers. Right. You know, every kid now also has a brain that can look at a collection of objects and sort of figure out a pattern among them. I think that that's also part of this trend in being able to understand form intuitively. I was speaking to like, you know, this NFT artist Sprite Bonkler, whatever, the guy who did Vermilion. He was like telling me when he started this project, or he started getting into NFTs or something, what he would do is click through pages and pages and pages, like search in eBay, you know, for a specific type of t-shirt or something, and look at all of them, like look at like 100 results on a page and just click through all of them, so that he would get a sense of rarity and like how this is distributed across aesthetic qualities, like what makes a JPEG stand out from the other JPEGs, and like be able to do that like a machine almost. And I think that we're all used to that. We look at so many things at the same time at once that like this understanding of style and aesthetics becomes very naturalized. Like we can group much more easily. At the same time that like also machines are learning to group different styles together more easily.
Exactly. And often that happens, right? Like we sort of build machines to mimic the thing that is really useful or valuable for us, even if we're not doing it super consciously. I feel like the millennials who could pattern recognize capitalized on that skill, and they did well in their generation, like the K-hole format, looking at the chaos of things and being able to like go up a level and pattern recognize. So there's a question of whether we can speak about style on the protocol level, and also in the writing of your book. Like what is style? How do we think? Because we're having you on the show today to talk about your new book. Like your previous novel, Island Time, Little Pink Book, is also something of an experiment. Practically speaking, it was commissioned as an exhibition text for the artist Diane Severin Nguyen for her 2024 exhibition at the Rockbund Art Museum in Shanghai. But a more useful framing might be, as NymphEd alumni Alexi Ilario put it in her conversation with you for Interview magazine, as a hyper-feminine Chinese century dreamcore novel. It's subtitled A Bad, Bad Novel. I guess, how do you describe your book?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many different ways that I think about it. There's obviously this angle of like Orientalism. It also is a sort of playing with the like cliches of postmodern narrative. In a way, it's also like reacting against what bothers me about a lot of, quote, literary fiction today, which I encounter a lot in my work, sort of like trying to break all of the rules that currently make a book marketable. In other ways, it's almost like an AliExpress t-shirt where, you know, they have those super long titles where they like put a bunch of random words in it to optimize SEO. It is kind of a book like that. It's like girl, China, sex, postmodernism, conceptual, romance. Like it is a book that is, as you're reading it, selling itself to you over and over and over again, and like constituting itself as an object of desire for the reader, while then hopefully also undermining it. This like question of want and what readers want to read and whether or not you should give it to them is really interesting to me, because I like popular culture. I've like written about an idea of pop literature before. I love amateur fiction and sort of like juvenile aesthetics in writing and fan fiction and all of these things. But of course, I'm also against like brain slop, etc. And you can obviously, like, we have these other words to describe the like cultural mediocrity or like maybe even like sub-mediocrity going on right now. But I think desire is like this missing thing. Like people want this, like people want. The consumer wants, and the consumer is going to get it. That's what all of these Marvel movies are about.
Yeah.
You almost feel this atmosphere of like, oh, give me more, like this obsession with these characters. And that's interesting to me. That's why I'm interested in romance novels. Like they're the best-selling books in the world other than religious texts. Both religious texts and romance novels serve a clear function for the reader, which is maybe the opposite of art in some way.
One of those is for men, one of those is for women, so people know.
Exactly.
So in your novel, it's somehow both really readable, in part because of the format. There's not that much text on each page, but it's also like not easy to read because it's filled with all this, I think you and Alexi called it like decorative English, these kinds of phrases that you'd see on those pre-made signs that somebody might hang in their kitchen or on a throw pillow, these kinds of words that mean nothing that you sort of see everywhere. Like, what are some of the ways you set up those devices?
I think in general terms, as a plot, it's this romance. As I said, like people love romance novels. This is like what they want to read. So like this is a romance, right? And then in those books, they're always describing the character. Like, of course, all of the characters have to be hot, right? So it's like, oh, she's so small, so pretty. I'm interested in if you like use these adjectives too much, they become suspicious, right? How many times can you say lovely Li Mei or she's so small before it becomes suspect? Like, you know, you insist too much, right? I guess there's like a quote Chinese aesthetic to naming that this is playing on. And I'd been thinking about Chinese into English prose. People always say like, oh, the Chinese that's on graphic t-shirts, that's mistranslated English. But it's actually not at all, right? It's not a mistranslation of a Chinese thing. It's just like Chinese English or something. It's like t-shirt English. And similarly, these like odd naming conventions, for example, businesses in Chinatown, right, will have these names like Happy Sweet Cafe or Good Fortune Lumber Company, as though just by using these adjectives like happy or sweet or good or lucky, it is true. And we don't really do that in America. I guess there's like Best Western hotel, but like it's not classy, right? Like that's how you know it's probably not a good hotel. Yeah. So that's one aesthetic where it becomes suspicious. Like the word negates itself essentially by trying to be too desirable or trying to seek your attention too clearly.
You said that this book was somewhat inspired by Byung-Chul Han's Shanzai deconstruction in Chinese. Could you just tell us more about that?
Yeah, this book, I think it's one of his most well-known books now, or at least in America. I think he obviously has been a big thing in Germany for a while. I think people in America really love this book, Shanzai, because it's about simulacra. It's this kind of Baudrillardian thing. But it's basically about knockoff culture, AliExpress, as we were talking about. But according to Byung-Chul Han, this is one of like 2 books about Chinese art history and aesthetics that I've read. So this idea of the authentic original in Chinese art, or maybe Eastern art in general, has never really been a thing. Like back in the day or whatever, if you had a master landscape painter, you could create multiple copies of it, or students could copy it, and it doesn't really matter which one was first. The other thing that I found maybe more useful in terms of how to write a book that also is in dialogue with Diane's art. In the book, he says the best painting, like different critics and poets would like add to it, like put writing literally on it, like a nice little poem or like their own stamp of approval. So like, it's not like one signature. There's all of these different people's names over potentially centuries who have looked at this painting or who've added something to it. And this idea that this is such an amazing multimedia work, like you have the painting and then you have the criticism on it, literally. Like it mixes all these modes and has all these different media layers in this interesting way. So that was like interesting to me as I was thinking about fan fiction as a form of criticism or interpretation and how these 2 things might work together.
Yeah, Yeah, I think the idea of the fake or copy didn't exist in the West either until the printing press.
Oh, you mean just like icon painting, or you're thinking about the change from, right, and now that we're returning to a time when multiples are normal and natural and you don't worry as much about authorship. It feels like a very 18th century to now,
or something,
right?
I mean, as a way of introducing the main character, maybe, what would you imagine Byung-Chul Han's critique of Lemay being? I mean, I could imagine him speaking about her as narrating her own life until she's a soul lost in a mise en abîme of mirrors of her own creation or something, you know? I mean, the main character of the book absolutely feels like the kind of figure Byung-Chul Han often invokes when speaking about the kind of digital media dominated age we're in.
Like, yeah, so who is Lemay as a subject to you?
Yeah, I think that's the question. I didn't realize how much that is the question that maybe always interests me in my writing. Like, what is a character? Like, you have this narrator saying these things about this girl, Lemay, but is there a way to destabilize that and make you wonder whether it's even true? Because there is no actual, there's nothing under the text, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess this becomes a question about what it means to write and also what it means to understand other people, which is ideally what you would be forcing the reader to think about. Like, if I'm going to sit down and create a realistic seeming person, for some reason I feel like deeply uncomfortable with that. Like, the idea of pretending that I could create another subjectivity or even know someone else's subjectivity that's not my own and claim that they are transparent to me is very odd. I'm not going to say it's like unethical to create a character, but I guess specifically in this context.
If you're hearing this message, you've completed the first step towards becoming a New Models member. To continue, visit patreon.com/newmodels or newmodels.substack.com. A complete library containing hundreds of rare New Models episodes awaits.